When this seller tries to flip his Rivian on Doug DeMuro's Cars and Bids, will it turn into a gold bar or a brick?
Nerd!
Bid Nerds is your daily YouTube car game show, where we predict the online auction results of the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. It's just like the Price is Right game show. Play along and see if you can beat the nerds.
Is a 2023 Rivian R1S Adventure Edition. This car is on Cars and Bids. It's got 60 miles. So basically the guy bought it and drove it home. It's offered out of Santa Ana, California. The car closes in just a day. I don't know anything about these cars. I'm not even going to get into it because I didn't select it. I am just going to introduce it and get out of its way and send it over to JP. What is it about this car that you found interesting, and what is it about the market for sort of this new wave of heavy-duty electric vehicles, JP? So I think you're going to juxtapose this against something else that's making headlines. So take it away, John.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can finally get a Cybertruck. Everyone's talking about Cybertruck, right? People are shooting them with machine guns, showing that I guess they're bulletproof or something, like literally. I don't know. There's a lot of people that hate Elon Musk, so they're like, oh, I'm going to get this instead of the Cybertruck. But everything I've heard about him, and I honestly don't know a goddamn thing about him either. They look nice enough. Okay, great. But unless it's a Tesla, it seems like if you're going to do the EV thing, you're just stuck with a really difficult time charging these on any kind of regular basis. I think if you're going to do a cyber or some kind of SUV truck, the Hummer thing is kind of pretty neat. They all just kind of blend together, these crazy EV heavy, just ridiculously expensive EV trucks. They were all the rage, but now every dealership that sells some kind of EV, Mercedes EVs are just, most of the Mercedes dealerships are having to rent extra lots to store all the extra Mercedes EVs that they've got. Audi they're stacking up. Like nobody can sell an EV. The EV market is just taking a crap. The only EVs that are selling are Teslas, and Tesla, that's partially because Tesla is, they've got it down. They lowered their prices, they're out there going, okay, we're going to make market adjustments. And now all these other vehicles, the Mach-E's and the Lightnings and all that stuff, no one could sell them to save their lives. And the feds are getting rid of the EV. There's like that $7,500 rebate that was around. That's going away at the end of the year. So all those EV vehicles that are stacking up on dealers' lots are now going to go up by $7,500. So I think that just spells doom for most of these non-Tesla SUVs. Add to all of that, the fact that it's just, I keep hearing that these just turn into bricks. There's a local dealership that's gotten a few of these because they were kind of the rage and they hadn't met the dealers. And they've had two of them that literally sat for like 5 months while they tried to figure out how to get the thing to turn on because some software glitch happened and literally a brick. This is a car, at least my old Fiat, if it broke down, I could push it. This thing stops working. You need a forklift. These things are so heavy. Wade, what do you think of the Rivian brick?
Oh, I could talk for 30 minutes about all the points that you made.
Because why, Wade? Do you have some sort of technology background?
I do. And I don't do anything EV related on my channel personally much, but I'm around a lot of EV things, cars and tech and startups and stuff. And I have to keep an eye on the EV market because it is what people are really, really interested in right now. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side of the coin you're on, it's kind of a rough time to both buy an EV and be an EV owner. If you are an EV owner, if you bought a Tesla sometime in the last year and a half, that Tesla is worth 30% less, both in depreciation and the fact that Elon Musk has decreased the Tesla prices quite significantly. If you're a buyer of an EV, there's a lot of options out there. but a lot of the options aren't that great. If you want a Tesla, you probably would have already bought a Tesla by now. If you want an option like this, these things, the Rivians, the pickup trucks, and the SUVs are still like $100,000 plus trucks. And they have a big question mark when it comes to reliability. And I would say the question mark has become an exclamation point because they were ranked like one of the least reliable cars of the year for a multitude of reasons. But like you said, JP, one of the issues with EVs and everything being computer-based, which we talk about quite often, is that these are not easy to service. And when something goes wrong, the whole car is dead. And it's not easy to fix, and it's not quick to fix. Another YouTuber that I kind of vaguely know had a Rivian in the shop for weeks and weeks and weeks because of software update issues here, and this patch didn't work there, and this broke when it wasn't supposed to be even a maintenance item. And he's just getting text messages saying, we've never seen this before, because it's essentially a car that's based on computers and software and all this stuff, and it's not really a well-established brand or company right now, so there's so many issues. It's a whole thing. I mean, this is just, it's an interesting time for cars, and these are really, really popular, especially in the Pacific Northwest, especially in places like Colorado and Utah. It's kind of that
California,
and California as well. It's kind of that like all-encompassing, outdoorsy family truck, really versatile, universal appeal. Very expensive, but I think people are getting into them and they're being surprised by a lot of factors. And it's not that cheap to charge. I mean, you're putting in sometimes 5, 10, 15 grand or more to install the proper high capacity charger in your garage, or you're relying on charging stations around that are unreliable, unfamiliar, crowded, 30 miles away sometimes. And it's also something that people have realized, especially people who are getting like the F-150 Lightnings and stuff, who are maybe coming from traditional trucks, work trucks. They had a whole, experience having work trucks, and they're like, oh, this electric F-150 is cool. And then they're realizing all the quirks of EV ownership. So man, it's a whole thing. Interesting pick. Not what I would expect, but it's tough.
Mental, will you pull up photograph?
Nope, don't you dare ruin my thing. If it's
75.
No.
75. All right, you do it. Then you do it.
Yeah. I was gonna because it's photograph 75 where he has the sticker.
Yeah.
Okay, because yes, I
go ahead, jump in and tell everybody what you see.
Okay,
and
so what we have here. So obviously, and Buddha on here said the days of people buying these things to flip are done because the supply chain has finally met up to the demand, whether you like it or not. And this person clearly bought this to flip. And if you go all the way to, and I apologize for anyone that's getting nauseous watching me click this through, you go to right here. Now he put the key over that because they don't want you to know how much they paid for this because they're trying to get you to part with their money. However, if you just go back to right there, and then we simply zoom in right on there, we know he paid $80,000 for this vehicle because he didn't put the key over the sticker right there. You can't see it on the frame, and that annoys me. So if you're looking at this, it's picture 70 of 76 on the Cars and Bids auction. A little bit of a weak sauce on that one, and I wish I could make this work better, but I don't know.
There's a way to do it, but yeah. All
right.
Whatever.
So the guy at my work actually has one of these things, but he also has a Tesla, and he raves about how great this car is. It is the only SUV with a usable third row, so it's cool. But yeah, this person bought it to flip, not because they're an EV nerd, and I'm not a fan of this one. There was the article on the drive where somebody backed into this thing and they tried to total it for effectively a fender bender. We talked about it. The paintless dent repair guy fixed it for less than that. So you're taking a bigger chance with this than you are with that Mondial.
Right.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Which is saying something.
Bob Kuntz says that this discussion is why EVs are having trouble. Anyone can come up with an anecdote to make their point, and mostly one hears the bad stories, so it's really hard to know what the real percentage of the problem is. I don't know, Bob. There's I don't know anyone that has an EV that hasn't described problems. And it's not necessarily technical problems, because actually with Teslas, they tend to be extraordinarily reliable. Like everyone I know that has a Tesla is like, yeah, they just work all the goddamn time. And all you got to do is brakes. And I've got, we know Radu, he has one of Elon's first cars. Like it was Elon's first S model. And that thing has almost 200 something thousand miles on it. And it looks brand new and it drives like new and it's awesome. I actually think there is a case for EVs for some people. Our friend Lee Patet, who's probably watching, he has one with, I think his has the third row, but whatever. He's talking about range anxiety and trying to go to California and back and stuff like that from Las Vegas. And everyone I know that has either a Tesla or some other kind of EV tells me about the range anxiety, other than Radu. Radu is just nothing is wrong with EVs in his world. These cars are, but it seems like all of them that aren't Tesla are really, really, really risky. Because like you said, Wade, it's like kind of new technology. Here's the thing. In 2008, 2009, remember biofuel was all the rage? There was billions upon billions of investment dollars put into biofuel. When was the last time you heard of anyone talking about biofuel? I mean, this is like DOA, right? So are we at a moment where EVs are going to be like, have we crossed the threshold, or are they still going? What do you think is going to happen?
I think we've crossed the threshold of the introduction to EVs. I think we're still a long way away for them to be really mainstream. We're on the West Coast where EVs are arguably everywhere. If you go east of Colorado or Utah, I mean, it is no man's land for both charging and also ownership and knowledge and understanding of EVs. I mean, there's nothing. And even on the East Coast, it's kind of iffy depending on where you're at. So we're blessed in the fact that we're kind of the experimental side of the country with this new technology, which has its pros and cons. But I think we're a long ways away from having all cars be EVs, which I know is a fear for you and maybe some other people as well. But I just don't think it's viable right now. And I also wonder, when cars first started in this country, there were new automakers popping up every other year. And as time went on, they all phased out. And that's why we have so few nowadays. I think we're experiencing that with EVs. I mean, there seems to be new EV startups popping up every year. CES is next month, and there will be, I'm sure, half a dozen new EV companies trying to make cars or chargers or tech or this or that. And as time goes on, they will be weeded out. I don't know that Tesla is maybe the Ford of EVs. They seem to have nailed down the process of making pretty standardized cars across their whole model lineup, and they're relatively reliable and easy to maintain, and they have mass appeal. But a lot of these other brands, I think, like you said, you just don't know. And we're kind of in that stage now where they're starting to be proven to maybe not be all the way there. And we'll see which way it flips.
Well, what do we think this particular one will go for? This is Bid Nerds, and we do make predictions on auction. So, Deeb, what's your bid?
John, I want to give you one quick story. Remember our good friend Frank Collins, who was the classic technician? Well,
of course,
I was at Godden. Yeah. So Frank and his family moved to the San Diego area, and he is a service or call technician for Lucid. And basically, when these cars become a brick, and they do, again, because these are all being made by tech companies, not automobile companies, he gets in his car, which I think is like a Honda Element, and then he drives to people's driveways, and he works on the bricks to get them running again, rather than towing them to a service center, because there are no service centers. And it's his job to crack the codes and get these cars going again. So the guy who was incredibly skilled at analog, air-cooled 911s is also a great code breaker and key master for unlocking the problems on Lucid, which is probably the same for Tesla and Rivian as well. But your comment that was being challenged by one of your take that was being challenged by one of the comments, oftentimes is true. To talk to Frank and hear about all the teething process of getting these cars to become reliable machines for their owners is a process, and there's no secret sauce. It's trial and error, trial and error, and trial and error. That being said, I thought it was very interesting that, as Mental stated, that this guy covered the price because he wants to flip it for profit. He waited a really long time with this car, and he thinks there's a long line behind them. But as was mentioned, supply has caught up to demand. You can order a Rivian and get that car in about as long a time as it takes for them to build it. And while this car was paid for in the 80s, the base price on this car, which was the second wave of deliveries, the first wave, the base price was $75,000. The second wave was $78,800. And I'm with Mental. This guy doesn't deserve to turn a profit on this car. He owns it. He waited. He should keep it. And the idea that he was going to sort of expose it and make a lot of money, I think, is gone. I think that the audience is going to see what he's up to by covering the price. I do not think that helped his case. And so I'm going to say $78,800, and the final bid is going to be equivalent to the base price of his Rivian. He's not going to get all the options, and he's certainly not going to get the tax and license that he paid for, and he's going to wind up eating it, and he's got a firm grip on this car. That's what I think is going to happen. John, $78,800 to you.
I think that's a pretty good prediction if it were on BAT. We're sitting on Cars and Bids, and I think Doug's platform is the right platform for EVs. Don't get me wrong. I think Doug does well with stuff like this. But I think...
Let me lob you a couple more. Let me lob you a couple more, JP. The car closes in a day, and it's at $69,000 on 9 bids. The comments called him out for covering the thing, and so the commenters disclosed that this was based on the VIN, a second wave car, and what the base price was. And of course, Mental showed you that if you could zoom in on your thing, you could see the sticker price anyway. So they called him out on it. So I understand where you're going with that, but I want you to know what's happening in the comments because we didn't really discuss that.
Well, I mean, it actually goes right along with what I was going to say, and kind of so it really backs up where I was going. I mean, a lot of times, like we say all the time, Cars and Bids, unlike the other platforms, doesn't as often see late stage rallies, and it's not uncommon for bids to just stall out days before the thing ends. And I think given what you just said, if the comments are already kind of sour on this guy, I think this is it. The last bid was like 4 days ago, and I think we're not going to see another one. I think this car is going to FTS at $69,000. I don't think it's getting another single cent. What do you think, Wade?
Yeah, so no offense to Zach Miller if he's in here, but Cars and Bids has become like the unofficial Rivian dealership. They have sold like 150 Rivians in the last year or two, and I feel like I see them list a T or an S like every week, every other week. The thing about them though is that they don't really seem to sell below MSRP that often. Maybe everyone turned on this guy and the bids are done, but people still want these. And I think a lot of them still don't understand that you could spec one and get one relatively soon. Yeah. I think he probably still gets close to MSRP at like 79,000. And
you're going right over me. I like it. That's a good take. Wait,
I think he has to sell it. I mean, he's in for over MSRP with tax and everything else. He's not going to get 100. He's not going to get 90. He is probably not going to get 85 with all the comments, but at 78, 79, like he has to sell it because this is it, another month or two and it might be a $70,000 truck.
Yeah. I mean, Zach's in the chat. He says, and Zach Miller is from Cars and Bids. He says we have like a 97% sale rate with Rivians.
People want them.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me finish though. And I think that was, that's been the case. I think that the tide is shifting so heavily with EVs and particularly this cars that that's great that they've sold 97% of them before. Is that going to continue now? Sorry, Deeb, what were you going to say?
Since Zach is watching and commenting, Zach, knowing that most Rivians have roughly the same MSRP, what is Cars and Bids stance on what percentage of MSRP do you allow to set the reserve? What's your stance for setting the reserve on a brand new delivery mile MSRP? Do you go at base price? Do you go at MSRP? Do you go plus 5% for reserve? How do you set reserve for those cars? Anyway, go on.
He can't answer, but maybe he'll put it in the comments. And Mental, what do you think is going to happen with this brick?
Rivian people are willing to wait. They are a lot more refined, I think. And this is the people that buy Rivians are researched on that. I do commend Cars and Bids for having a 97% sale rate. And the people that I know have them actually do love them. And this was a well-tested car for what was brought to market. But I think the fact that everyone's soured on it and it's got their just
soured on this listing, not on
the Rivians, and definitely not on Cars and Biz. They have soured on this particular seller. I say it also, I'm just going to say it does it because I got to pick a price below you guys. I'm going to say 77 fails to sell. If it had 2,000 miles on it and you just, I didn't like this very much, and you'd probably have a better chance of turning a profit on this one. But yeah, that's where I'm going to go with there. And Zach is in the chat. Let's catch up. But he said in the last 3 our Rivian auctions, it'll sell. He's confident, and I'm glad they're on there. And then he did just come back there, Wade, or rather JP and Deeb. He came back with an answer to your question. So he says they don't have a hard stance on that percentage. Obviously, they want to sell any car. If it sells over MSRP, that's the deal. And good on them, because that's the business that they're in, and that's why you should consider listing that one there. And that's just the reality. And I don't think the reality, I think this guy's just trying to turn a quick buck. It's like that the Gazoo tuned Toyota we had a while back there. I remember that, yeah. Once the people get a sense that you're trying to prey on them, they turn on you fairly quickly, and that's agnostic of site or vehicle. I think this is going to go badly for this seller, but everyone else, if you're looking for a Rivian, absolutely go to Cars and Bids, just maybe not this one.
Yeah, Cars and Bids is your Rivian superstore. Based on what Zach said, that, if it's going to go for over MSRP, they want the cars to sell. All of our bids are well below MSRP. And so if we're in the right range, I think this car is in danger of selling, because Cars and Bids has afforded those sellers a slightly more generous reserve, structure. And I think if Cars and Bids is aware of it the way we are, and Wade has sort of brought to our attention how supply is catching up to demand, then it's time for Cars and Bids to change their stance on where they're protecting the assets with reserves. Otherwise, this car could fail to sell, and the next few could.
This isn't an uncommon car. It's not like a car that sells once a month or once a year. I mean, I think there's got to be more than one Rivian for sale right now. And I know I've seen on Twitter.
On Cars and Bids.
Yeah, on Cars and Bids. I've seen like every week there's a Rivian for sale, just sold. So Cars and Bids knows what they're worth. The commenters know what this one is MSRP. The seller has to be aware of where the market is for this car. I
don't understand, and maybe help me, because maybe you know better, because I'm just not an EV guy. I don't at $70,000, there have got to be freaking bargains on brand new Mercedes Qs or Audi version EVs or Taycans or any of the other SUV type EVs. Why would you? What's the big deal about this one? They're all kind of the same, unless you're in a Porsche one.
I mean, there's definitely some brand discrepancies as far as tech, range, features.
Is the range that much better on this one than any of the other ones?
I can't speak to range one way or another on a lot of these EVs, but I know that people like what's new and different and interesting, and there really isn't a comparable like third row big SUV EV. Mercedes has actually the largest line of EVs out of every auto manufacturer, but they don't really have like a big SUV. Chevy doesn't really have a big EV SUV. Ford, the Mach-E is actually really, really popular, but it's not quite comparable. So the Rivian it's a crossover, and so the Rivian has kind of filled that gap with the pickup truck and the SUV that was kind of missing. I don't think people are cross-shopping this in like a Cybertruck, for example, but I think people are like cross-shopping this in like even like an Escalade or Suburban, and they're like, well, this is an EV and it's new and it has maybe more technology.
Does the Hummer have a third row? It probably doesn't, huh?
I don't know if...
damn big vehicle.
Nope. Yeah, I don't know. The Hummer has a pickup truck and the regular SUV version, but I don't know if it has a third row. But people are cross-shopping those too.
Let me throw you some data. There's 4 Rivians on Cars and Bids. This is one of 4 right now.
Yeah, Zach actually helped it and said that too.
Yeah, there's one of these with 2,200 miles. Exactly the same package, same color with 2,200 miles. This particular car has 835 horsepower and 908 pound-foot of torque and has the maximum driving range rating of 321 miles. Even before I read maximum driving range, 321 miles is generous for a car of this size and that specification power. Most of the cars that are like this big with that kind of power can only go about 200 miles. So this is fully loaded.
And those ranges are always estimates.
Yeah.
They're always on the higher end.
They're very,
But that's as good
perfect
as it gets for them.
conditions.
And Wade brings up a good point. This car at the moment is peerless. Lucid is bringing an SUV that is based on their same platform, so it's going to be this size. But Rivian has beat the Lucid to market by a year.
Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair.
2023 Rivian R1S Adventure Edition with essentially delivery miles. Let me pull it up here and see. It has 60 miles on it out of Santa Ana, California. JP wanted to bring this car up to open up a dialogue now that Cybertrucks are out there, and supply is starting to catch up with demand for some of these bigger, more expensive luxury electric cars like the Rivian, like the Lucid, like the Teslas. Are we seeing now the potential end of the buying to flip, the speculator market on these cars? People who put in orders just to turn a profit because the dealers are selling these cars at sticker. So it was really interesting. This particular person, JP, you may remember, put a business card or what turned out to be like a key, I think, over the window sticker where the price and the options were priced out, so as not to convey what the actual sticker price of his Rivian was, which seems kind of ridiculous because then he went ahead and put it on Cars and Bids where every used Rivian goes to be sold. So all you have to do is look at what's on the car and match it up with Cars and Bids bid history, and you'd get a pretty good idea, which was effectively disclosed by the commenters in the comments on this particular car. We surmised that this car was sold in the mid $80,000 range. And then we all went on and hung ourselves and said, none of us thought he would get into that range and get sticker price for his car. I said $78,800, effectively, I think, saying that this car wouldn't get any more bids. I think that's kind of where we're at. No, that can't be right because JP, you came in at 69.
That was me that said it wouldn't get more bids. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 78.8 was the base price for the car, which was absolutely disclosed in the comments. So I went with the base price, suggesting that he wouldn't get sticker for the car. That was the stance I took. John, you said you wouldn't get any more bids at 69. Wade took the over, covered me by $200 at $79,000. Smart move, Wade. Mental came in just underneath me at $77,000. Our car sold for $86,000 on 21 bids. Now, if this guy paid 83, if this guy paid 85, he paid tax and registration. That's 10%, which means he's in this car $95,000 to $100,000. So at 86 grand, ladies and gentlemen, he lost money. I'm going to say something so silly, I'm already laughing at my own joke. At 60 miles, he hasn't even put a tank of gas in it, but it's an electric car. I realize that joke doesn't work. But he didn't drive the car, and he's losing his 10%. What's the motivation here? You know, I mean, like, I just don't. What's going on in the Wade? You're in tech. What the hell is this? Help me decipher this result. Who goes out and speculates and then is willing to lose $12,000 to $15,000 thinking you might make money on the car? I don't get it.
Somebody who was late to the game. Look, we don't know for sure why he sold it, but the fact that he put the key over the price is kind of slimy and leads all of us to believe that he didn't want people to know how much it was worth so that hopefully somebody would overpay. But But the thing is, and I gave Zach Miller from Cars and Bids a hard time on the last show, and I said, Cars and Bids is like the unofficial Rivian dealer. You can go on Cars and Bids at any point in time over the course of a week and see 2 or 3 or 4 Rivians for sale. There's 120 or 130 former Rivian sales between the pickup truck and the SUV. So the market on these is set, and it surprisingly is still about MSRP plus or minus a couple thousand on either end, depending on the edition of this car or of this truck. But you know, it's been a long time since these were selling for like $110,000, $120,000, $130,000. That ship has sailed, and maybe this person just happened to be the last person in line to get this version of the truck, and it showed up late, and he was like, oh, I still tied up 80 or 90 grand. I got to sell it no matter what. If I make money, whatever, but I got to get out of it. Maybe that was the case. Maybe he didn't really like it, but the key over the price thing leads me to believe that he was trying to get as much money as possible out of it and banking on maybe somebody not paying attention or not knowing. And like you said, at the end of the day, yeah, he got out of it. He sold it, you know, at 80 whatever thousand it was. But between the tax, between the registration, between waiting, between having all of that money tied up, maybe he had a loan on it. I don't know, but he definitely lost money in the end.
Well, Bob Coons brings up a good point. He did get the $7,500 tax rebate. So maybe, you know, he's only in it, you know, for 80 grand or whatever. So that may have saved his butt because that tax credit goes away in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, it does.
But even still, I mean, that cancels out with tax and everything else, and the fact that he waited. And you know, there were probably better things he could have done with the money, assuming he bought it outright, or if he had a loan on it, even for a month or two. I mean, I don't know how it works with the pre-ordering the Rivian specifically, but I would imagine he really didn't come out that far ahead. Maybe not as much as he was hoping.
Yeah, I don't think it didn't come out the way he wanted it to. You know, he probably ordered this thing back when things were nuts, and he finally got it, and he had to make the decision, okay, and, you know, he didn't want it, so he's probably just trying to get out from underneath it. And like a lot of people that made investments on stuff at that point, you know, at this point, they're just hoping to come out even. You know, he did okay. It could have been a lot worse. What are you hopping in deep?
John, I got a question for you. Do you know if, or maybe Wade can answer this, do they lease these cars or do they only sell them?
I'm not sure.
There is, because it says
go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
No, I don't know.
In the notes it says that the sale, he wants the proceeds to satisfy a loan, but it doesn't say what type of loan it is. And I was just curious because if he leased it, he wouldn't have had to pay all the tax. He would just pay the tax on the payments that he made. So it wouldn't be as bad.
Yeah, but you'd have to do a buyout up front, and that's always more expensive. The only time that makes sense is if that does make sense sometimes if you're trying to, you know, if you want to write off that particular year. Do these things don't have that tractor truck write-off thing, do they? Like the big heavy H2s used to, or whatever? No.
A lot of trucks, even like the G-Wagons and stuff, still have the tax write-off. I don't know if the Rivian might be heavy enough.
I mean, they're freaking heavy, right?
Yeah. Volkswagen Touaregs used to have it. Remember that?
Back in the day, the Touaregs and all the big SUVs used to be able to get that, and I think some of them still do. But yeah, I don't think
when I worked with Volkswagen Audi, John, in December, we would sell Touaregs like they were going out of style, 25 grand.
I mean, that's why there were so many Hubbers on the road back in 2003. I mean, it's because everyone was getting that. Because back then it was a big deduction. Gerd's hanging out in the chat. Nice to hang out with us, Gerd.
Zach joined us.
I saw that Zach's in there too. Gerd mentions that, you know, it is possible that he didn't. That's only if he qualified. You don't automatically get $7,500 back. It's a $7,500 if you qualify. So it kind of depends on how much money you made and all that kind of stuff.
I think one of the qualifications should be you have to keep the car for some time, you know, some time window, right? Like if you just buy it and then flip it within 30 days, you shouldn't get jack shit. I mean, come on.
Hey, Zach. Hey, Zach, do you know if Rivian will lease these cars to people? Are some people leasing these, or are they only financing them? And send us answer that in the comments if you could.
Tom Amenta says it's a 6,000 pound thing, and I don't know how heavy a Rivian is. I gotta think it's close to that.
This is a beast.
Yeah.
I do want to say something along the lines of that nonsense tax credit had some sort of agricultural component to it as well, and I don't know if they qualified.
Well, yeah, it was originally supposed to be, but that was the loophole, and I don't know if at some point they closed that loophole.
So you just have to park it in your front yard to get that, or
You
what?
have to, I don't know, yeah, whatever. You have to put a plow on the back or something like that, and all right, grow some kale or something like that in your San Francisco, plot. All right, was that all the predictions? Hey guys, thanks for watching this clip of the Bid Nerds podcast. Play along with us live every Sunday and Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. on YouTube. And see if your bids stack up to the rest of the nerd herd in the chat live. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you on the next episode.